Hello everyone, good morning. My name is Chandra here.
Yeah, hi, this is Greg Pottebaum as well. Thanks everyone for attending today's webinar, which is all about cyber hygiene, uncool but necessary. We have a couple of panelists today. Chandra has joined. He's the CEO of SecPod, and Preeti and Manish are on. They're principal architects. I'm Greg. I head up our partner program. So again, today's webinar is about cyber hygiene. So what does that mean in regards to hygiene and keeping computers up to date with patches and secure? That's what we're going to talk about today, and we might as well get started. But before we do, let me just mention that you can ask your questions during the webinar. Just type those in. Towards the end of the webinar, we'll go ahead and answer those questions. So for now, let's go ahead and get started. Chandra.
Thank you, Greg. Hey, good morning, everyone. Thank you once again for joining this webinar on cyber hygiene. Before I begin on the topic, I'm going to demonstrate one exploit. So let's assume that someone has sent me an email with an invoice attachment saying that invoice is overdue. So this could be sent to your company's CEOs or CFOs. And I end up opening that. I see that it opened with a Foxit reader. This is a PDF reader that I had installed. And along with that, it also opened my calculator, which I did not launch, but it launched by itself. So what happened here basically is that my Adobe reader, which is the Foxit reader, the PDF reader that I have, which is the Foxit reader, had a vulnerability, a remote code execution vulnerability that was exploited by a crafted PDF that we have created for this demo. This crafted PDF ended up launching a new process called calculator. This can be, instead of a calculator, it can be a remote shell or a reverse shell where sitting from outside this premise, I would be able to control this particular system executing these commands remotely. And that is entirely possible because of the vulnerabilities that are present in the operating systems and third-party applications that are widely used in these endpoint systems. Now, our topic today is about cyber hygiene. This was basically what I demonstrated is a vulnerability which was recently published, and we developed an exploit for it, and that is how you can exploit a vulnerability that are discovered on a day-to-day basis. And this is happening on a daily basis. In spite of investment in large number of tools, these attacks cannot be prevented, and there are certain steps or practices that need to be implemented in order to prevent ourselves from these type of attacks. Today's session is about cyber hygiene and how we can perform some of the fundamental practices or implement some of the practices in place to prevent ourselves from attacks. Now, we all know attacks continue to occur on a daily basis. And organizations do invest in multiple tools and products. Each organization could be having some 15 to 16 different products from different vendors. So are these investments really effective? So that is the question that we need to ask, whether the investment that is being put in managing these IT systems, are they really being effective? Now, the reason why these attacks continue to occur is because most organizations fail to implement some of the basic cyber hygiene practices and needs. And even if organization wishes to put these practices in place, the tools ecosystem is not really supportive. Now, we do invest in a large number of tools. So many tools are being procured, but in effect, we are not realizing security. So not sure if these investments are yielding results. And of course, new security layers are being introduced every now and then. So the new vendor is coming up with a new product almost regularly. The name of onion layers or multiple layers for security. And new products get introduced with slogans, prevent everything or mitigate all sorts of attacks and such claims. But at the even greater pace, the new newses are coming with new attacks that are getting published or exploited on a day-to-day basis. Now, security is definitely an ongoing battle. It is a process, not just the tools part of it. But in this battle, it is important to have an upper hand, and that is basically what security is about. So we can learn definitely from some of the mature sciences like the biology and military, and there's a lot of examples that we can inherit from these mature sciences, how to have an upper hand over adversaries. And to achieve that, it's important to put in some of the most fundamental security layers in place. And when I started thinking about what are these layers that are required to put in a cyber resilience framework in place, this is what I came up with. It essentially has 4 layers. Layer 1 is security by design. These are some of the fundamental measures that we will have to put in place, like the authentication, like the transport security, like authorization and access control. So while designing the systems, these are something that become part of the design itself. And then secondly, it's the cyber hygiene layer, which is most important layer. So we need to perform a continuous risk assessment and risk mitigation, identify the loopholes that are getting discovered and mitigate those loopholes on an ongoing basis. And of course, we are trying to protect something that is always changing. So the IT environment or the digital world is constantly changing. New systems are coming in place. People are moving here and there. So it's important to have continuous visibility to all the IT assets, perform the risk assessment continuously, and have a risk mitigation in place continuously. And then the third layer is the surveillance and reconnaissance, where you would do the monitoring, detection for potential malware and exploits, and then respond to that and recover from any attack that could cause damage. And the fourth layer is kind of an optional layer, I would say. It's more of an offensive capability, more from the deterrence point of view and attack and countermeasure when required. So today we are talking about cyber hygiene. So there are multiple tools that fit into each of these layers. So you have identity management system, transport security and encryption systems and all of that at the time of design. And then you have cyber hygiene, you have vulnerability assessment, risk mitigation, patching, compliance, and all of those needs. And then in the surveillance and reconnaissance, you have these anti-malware products and SIM, IDS, and MDR and MEM and all sorts of these products that help in detecting a threat and responding to those threats. And then you have offensive capabilities with ability to penetrate and all sorts of tools that are widely known and available in the market. So we are talking about cyber hygiene. There are some challenges that we are seeing in order to implement or cyber hygiene practice. I already talked about tools not being supportive. Well, let's understand with some of the statistics. Endpoints form 90% of any organization's asset list. You typically have these desktop, laptop servers, mobile systems, and other IP-enabled systems, which are significant part of any organization's network. And then 80 to 90% of these attacks occur because of the vulnerabilities that are widely known. And this is proven by multiple sort of attacks that we are seeing in the recent past, whether it is WannaCry or any of these attacks that are recently being published. Invariably, each of them tend to have a vulnerability that is patched by a vendor, but those patches are not rolled out. Those security fixes that are recommended are not fixed. And that is the reason why major attacks occur. Now, 70% of these attacks begin at endpoints. So the one that I showed where an email was sent. So these are typical social engineering tricks that are being used by the exploiters to send out crafted files and attachments and emails, which would end up downloading the malicious software onto my system and then perform the attack. And it begins with one system and then it spreads from one system to another systems. And this is how major percentage of the attacks are happening these days. And if you look at the NIST NVD database, we see about 14,000 vulnerabilities that were published in 2017. So that averages about 30 to 40 new vulnerabilities. These are some things that are widely known. Not every vulnerability gets into the NVD database. There are a good percentage of these vulnerabilities that are not published in the CVE database. And also there are a good percentage of zero-day exploits where the vulnerability is not known, but those are essentially exploiting a loophole that is present in these systems. Now, this is happening on a daily basis. And a progressive organization typically takes about 3 to 4 months to roll out these fixes. So the irony here is that while the new vulnerabilities are being discovered on a daily basis and the patches or the mitigations are being applied a few months later, and that is not really helping because there is a gap 3 to 4 months where these systems are widely open for attacks. And this is with organizations where some sorts of cyber hygiene practice is in place. But we have seen large number of systems, outdated systems are being used, operating systems which are 4 to 5 years old. We have seen outdated applications which are not really being supported by the vendors. A large percent of these systems are running with those. So those are the challenges which are beyond this list that we see on our attacks that we see on a day-to-day basis. Now, this really shows that there is something that is missing in the cyber hygiene practice that we are implementing today. Now, delving further into this, there are good challenges that are being faced by the IT operations and security team. So one of the fundamental need for security is having continuous visibility to the assets and the devices that are being secured, the network essentially, or the perimeter that is being secured. So today, organizations do not have visibility or continuous visibility to all of these systems. The traveling workforce, UI, OD scenarios complicate these further. It's really important to have a quick access to all these devices, operating systems that are there, what hardware and softwares are installed, who is the vendor, and other details like when was this procured, has it reached end of support, physical locations of all these devices. So without this information, which is available as and when I need, there is no way that we can safeguard these systems. So it's important to have access to all of these systems, run the IT environment in a really controlled fashion, ensuring that these systems are kind of whitelisted. Set is only within the organization. And then this continuous problem of endpoints having vulnerabilities. So we talked about hundreds of critical vulnerabilities that are being discovered on a day-to-day basis. Ransomware and malware generally tend to attack these endpoint systems that have these vulnerabilities. So vulnerability could be in the operating system or the third-party applications that we install on these systems. Typically, what is happening is that the risk-based auditing, which is performed once in a month or once in a quarter, is the practice that is being put by most organizations, while the new vulnerabilities are being discovered on a day-to-day basis. The reason why we resort to a regular, as in monthly or a quarterly auditing system or mechanism, is because of the tools limitations, I would say. I mean, if you run a scan, typically to put together a complete report from the scan, it can take anywhere between a week and 15 days. And then there is a disconnected system for patching, and then you'll have to identify the patch that you have to roll out manually and then figure out, perform all the research that is required and roll out these patches through yet another system, a patch management system. And then you have heterogeneous environment, typically, which is Windows, Linux, and Mac, and all sorts of Unix systems, etc. And each of them, the patching mechanism varies. So you may have multiple systems to do that. Patch management software that you may have procured, or an SCCM that only works, WSS that only works for Windows, and things like that. So all of these tend to complicate the whole patching exercise, and hence you see the delay. And of course, there is also, with the new age IT system, there is confusion around perimeter, where you have traveling workforce, people work from home and connect from anywhere. Those are facilities that are available, but there is also causing a lot of confusion around the security perimeter that I want to secure. Now, I'm also aware some of the organizations do not even perform these regular audits, so that is even more complicated in securing, because we don't know what risks are there, and we don't know whether those are being mitigated or even being exploited. So the product ecosystem essentially is that there are a large number of point products that we invest in. All of them operate in silos. Each of them have bloated feature set, adding to the complexity. We end up investing in tools that have multiple agents that you'll have to run, and taking the performance hit on these systems and losing productive hours of the workforce. But also with multiple tools being procured, there is of course the high cost of management, procurement, deployment, certifications, learning, vendor management, and compliance and risks, and all of these problems. So with each new platform or product that we procure, complexity multiplies. Majority of these attacks can simply be prevented with these 8 steps that I'm going to outline today. Step number 1 is having continuous visibility to all the IT assets, devices that are there within the organization, including the traveling workforce and people who are working from home, etc. So we need to know what kind of applications are installed, what kind of devices are running there, and what kind of operating systems they are running on. Are they outdated? Have they reached end of life and end of support? And really having a whitelisted or a controlled environment, keeping only the applications and systems that I want to run and have visibility on. So that is number one, or step number one. The step two is having an ongoing risk assessment to identify vulnerabilities and misconfiguration. When I say ongoing, we talked about this from the statistics that a daily basis newer vulnerabilities are discovered. So it's important to have a daily or a continuous assessment of these vulnerabilities, our ability to know what kind of vulnerabilities are present, what kind of misconfigurations are present, and are these systems being hardened or not. So it's important to run these scans or a risk assessment exercise on a day-to-day basis. And this needs to be an automated exercise. It cannot be a manual effort, digging through all the IT systems and figuring out what issues are could be present. And also, the step number three is whenever there is an high profile attack that we hear about, we should have access to kind of a search console that will analyze if my organization is impacted by that particular attack or that particular loophole or a weakness is present in my organization or not. So if you hear about WannaCry, it exploited a Microsoft Windows SMB vulnerability, and there is a CVE that is associated with it. I should be able to search for this particular attack symptoms and figuring out if I have been attacked or if there is a chance for being attacked. So if we are able to have that search console, we can quickly identify across all the systems and then put in place a mitigation strategy or even a workaround till a particular solution is rolled in. Step number four is having a consolidated the patch application mechanism in place. So having supporting heterogeneous operating systems and third-party applications, patching, etc. With one single console, I should be able to manage all of these systems instead of investing in multiple tools for multiple system types. And it's also important to apply or roll out patches based on the risk view. What typically happens is that you have a risk auditing tool that throws out a report that runs into thousands of pages, and then security administrators and the IT administrators have to go through each of them and identify the vulnerability, figure out what is the patch, download that patch, and push it through a patch management system. That is where all the manual effort is involved, and that is the reason why this delay happens. And if you have an integrated solution which identifies the vulnerabilities and also has capability to roll out these patches to mitigate those vulnerabilities, the job can be completely automated and all those manual efforts can be eliminated, saving a lot of time. And also closing the window for attackers to exploit these vulnerabilities. Step number five, highly critical patches has to be implemented or rolled out quickly. I mean, if there is a vulnerability that is being exploited by any of the exploit kits or a ransomware or malware, there should be a mapping available that tells me that these are the high critical patches. Go ahead and roll out those patches right now. And that facility should be kind of an automated response that identifies these potential attack symptoms and respond to those with a mitigation strategy or a patch or a hardening measure. It's important to cover the traveling or roaming employees as well, whether they are inside the premise or outside, wherever they are. This security measure should be applied or provided to those systems as well. Step number 7 is to automate the patching for non-production environments. So one of the concerns that is typically there is that when I roll out a patch, does it cause some of my applications to functionally broken? Now, typically that is not the case. I mean, when you have these endpoint systems, the desktops and laptops, these patching can be a complete automated process. Well, for the production servers that are running critical applications, that can be a manual exercise where you identify the vulnerability and then probably test it on a test bed and then only roll out these patches. Because while security is important, it's also important to have these services available to the customers that we serve. Step number 8 is to enforce a compliance guideline. So, irrespective of what the regulatory standards like PCR, HIPAA need, it's important to customize those for our need and strengthen our systems going by these guidelines. So a lot of these guidelines talk about asset visibility, vulnerability scanning, patching, having a password policy in place, and all of those hardening measures that are provided by the operating systems and the application servers and all of these environments, IT environments that are typically being managed. So with these 8 steps, I believe a large percentage of these attacks can really be prevented if we make this a daily automated process. Having visibility, doing a continuous assessment of for the risks, having an automated patching in place for large number of these endpoint systems, adhering to compliance guideline at all time, irrespective of the auditing schedules that are, whether it is quarterly or an annual auditing, it's important to ensure that these devices adhere to a particular guideline at all times. And having ability to analyze these impact, if I hear about an attack, an ongoing attack, which is exploiting a vulnerability, I should have visibility within my environment to see if my organization is affected by that particular loophole or a weakness and roll out a mitigation plan in place. And then roll out these critical patches as and when they become available on a day-to-day basis. Having a consolidated patching system in place to cover heterogeneous environment, and finally having coverage for the roaming users as well. So cyber hygiene is just like a healthy exercise routine, eating habits. It's important to safeguard these organizations' endpoints on an ongoing basis. So an ideal solution would provide up-to-date asset visibility, continuous visibility to all the IT assets and what kind of softwares and the locations of these devices. Performing a risk assessment on all identified devices, then patching based on the risks and remediation of misconfiguration to adhere to a particular compliance guideline continuously. With that final thought, so our solution, SecPartC Nano Platform, addresses this need with an array of tools that are made available through this platform. I'm going to do a quick demonstration of this tool. So we have a SaaS environment. This is a system with 3 Windows and 1 Linux system in place, and all that I have done here is deploy an agent on all of those 4 systems. Here is an overview from each of the tools. We have 6 different tools. We have asset management tool, which provides continuous visibility to all the IT systems. A vulnerability management tool that performs a risk assessment on all of these on a daily basis. A patch management tool that allows you to roll out patches for operating systems and third-party application. A compliance management tool that helps achieve or adhere to a particular compliance guideline. And then we have an endpoint management tool where you can get visibility, continuous visibility to all the IT systems, processor running, services that are running, and an EDR tool that will help detect indicators of attack and respond to those attacks in real time. So these are the 6 tools that we have, and this is an overview information from each of those tools. So there are about 5,000 vulnerabilities that are discovered in those 4 systems. You have criticality distribution, the patch management, talking about 653 patches that need to be rolled out to mitigate all of those vulnerabilities. We have compliance management tool, and we have an EDR tool. Each of these tools have its own dashboard. So you have a vulnerability management tool provides criticality, the severity rating for all of these vulnerabilities, and a map. This is something unique, a map of a vulnerability to a potential exploit kit or a ransomware that could exploit that particular vulnerability. Essentially telling us that these are most critical patches that you'll have to roll out a fix immediately. So this is a complete list of all of those attacks that could exploit the vulnerabilities in these 4 systems. There are additional information about vulnerability aging, since how long these vulnerabilities are open, the mitigation information that is available, what kind of patches that need to be rolled out to fix all of them. So this gives you a complete risk view. Then when you go to a patch management, you have ability to roll out those patches. So you have most critical patches segregated, so you can create an automation rule to roll out these patches. It's a complete list of the patches that have to be installed and their criticality. There is other information that is available. In order to actually roll out these patches, you go to missing patches, select the patches that you want to install, and apply those patches. So all of these can be installed right now. We also have most critical patches segregated, so you can select it and install these patches. We also have an automation rule where you can create a rule as and when a new vulnerability is there in any of these applications. And if a vendor has released a patch, go ahead and install that. So this can be a daily routine that runs behind the scene. So that's the patch management tool. We have an asset management tool, provides continuous visibility to all the IT assets, what kind of systems are there, what softwares are installed, hardware information. Are there any license violations? Do we have any outdated applications and end of life and support? End of support applications. Are there certain applications which are blacklisted that is running or installed with? And how efficiently these applications are being used, etc. So this is a real-time or a continuous information that is available. So any change that happens is reflected. Then we have an endpoint management tool, provides visibility to all the IT assets through these checks. So if you want to know what kind of ports are open, just a click away, port, service that is using, all of that information is there. And if I want to stop that particular service, I can go ahead and stop it. If I want to block that particular port, I can go ahead and do that as well. So likewise, we have large number of queries that are available for each of these operating system, family of operating system. In addition to that, you can also track whether your antiviruses are installed, up to date, and running, etc. And in the actions, there are array of actions that are available where you can apply these changes on the systems in real time, block an application or a device, roll out a software or uninstall a software, start or kill a process, make registry changes, make service related start or stop or restart, etc. Network related changes, you can shut down a reboot system as a response to either a patching activity or an attack that is an ongoing and you want to stop that system. You can quarantine or delete files. So there are other measures from security that you can apply on those systems as well. So that's an endpoint management system. Then we have a compliance management system that will allow you to create a benchmark based on the templates that we have for various regulatory standards or a technical standard. You have NIST compliance, PCI, and HIPAA compliance, and you can also create your own benchmark based on the templates that we provide here. So you can open any of these templates and customize the template according to your organization's need. So each of these operating systems have 500 to 600 different checks that you can perform and identify the deviations. And if there are deviations, mitigate those deviations as well. So these are full list of all the deviations that are available. And then here are the remediation actions that are available, which you can automatically roll out these fixes. So this can also be an automated process. If there is a change that happens, if someone opens up a hardening measure that you have put, you can, with an automated rule, immediately fix those deviations. And finally, we have an EDR tool, essentially a search console that will allow you to build queries and identify if there is any indicators of attack or compromise. So these are all the probes that are possible based on which you can build queries. And there are also response options available where you can make changes on the system to either block or contain an attack. We have some pre-packaged or pre-built set of queries that we have created for detecting any of the indicators of attack. You can run these as well to get real-time visibility across all of those systems. There are reports and alerts that can be automatically configured to send an email or download this report and go through, etc. So that's a quick overview from our platform. So essentially, it is built for providing cyber hygiene measures that you can apply and automate the application, achieve continuous compliance over specific guidelines with these 6 tools that we have. With that, I would like to conclude my session. We can move over to the questions that any of you may have.
Please submit your questions. Thank you, Chandra. I thought that was a really good overview and discussion. And we can take a few minutes now to answer any questions that people have.
Thank you, Greg. I see a question from Jay. Later sign in, will this presentation be available as a PDF? Yes, we will be sending out a PDF after this session.
Are there additional questions today? For more information about Saner Now, you can simply go to www.sanernow.com, which is the portal for the product. In addition to the portal providing quite a bit of information and resources, there's also a trial that people can step into. If people want to look at the product, there's two ways. One is to do the trial, the other is to contact us, and we'll schedule a one-on-one call to step you through an evaluation. There's another question.
There's one question from Badri Narayan. Does it work based on an agent? Yes, we will have to roll out an agent on each of the endpoints that are being managed. We have agents for all distributions of Linux, Windows, and Mac OS X. There's another question from Arjun. If we use the entire detail of your system is given to you, how can we be sure about that our system's data is safe? Will you have access to that too? Yeah, that is a good question. Thank you for asking. So we don't take entire system data. So although agent is installed on each of these systems, metadata information is collected to essentially identify the vulnerabilities and risks and roll out these patches. And even this information is safeguarded, and we have SLAs and processes in place in order to ensure the safeguarding of this data. There's a question from Dan. Do you have an MSP or a partner program? Greg, I think you can take that.
Yes, we have a number of MSPs that we work with, and they provide security services directly to their clients. They can provide that as a managed service. If they want, they can let the client have access just to their information, or they manage it completely for the client. MSP can also resell the product and provide service around that to a client. So I have a number of options there.
Yeah, I think we can get in touch with Dan post this to talk about the MSP partner program.
Mm-hmm. Any additional questions? Oh, I see.
Yeah, there is a question from Sandy. Is your tool or services in a schedule? Sorry, I didn't get that, Sandy. Yeah, so there is a question from Tony. This is very similar to a lot of the enterprise patching and compliance product. What makes your solution more desirable for us and our clients? Yeah, so as we talk, primarily there are compliance product and patch management solutions that are in place. Each of them operate in silos. Now, one of the unique difference that we are bringing in is having ability to run a daily scan, identify the vulnerabilities and the potential malware that could exploit these vulnerability, and linking that to a patch that you can roll out to fix in an automated manner. Of course, there are a good number of tools available to perform risk assessment as a separate activity, and then you generate a report, and then you have a patch management solution in place. Each of them add to the delay that are there. So our objective with our Nano Platform is having an automated daily routine which runs a scan for vulnerabilities and has ability to roll out these patches in an automated manner. In addition to that, we have brought in multiple other capabilities. One of the major requirement is having continuous visibility to the IT assets and ability to see what is going on these systems and having ability or capability to respond to them. and ensuring that whitelisted applications are only running and there are services that should be stopped. You can respond to those, etc. And beyond that, there is a compliance tool that can help adhere to a particular compliance guideline, not just assess, but also having ability to fix those deviations. So primarily, we are bringing in multiple tools into a single platform with one single agent. You have ability to manage your IT systems with these 6 tools that can address all of these business needs around cyber hygiene with a single console. And another philosophy or principle for our Nano platform is not just find the problem, but also have ability to fix these problems that we see.
One additional thing that I see when talking with people about various products is that our patching is more comprehensive in terms of the number of products and applications that we patch, handling many common third-party applications and products.
Yes, Sandy is saying, is your tool a service in a GSA schedule? Yes, Sandy. We can discuss that. So we will connect with you and then talk to you about that.
Okay, other questions? I hope everybody found today's webinar useful and the information relevant to what you're looking at. Again, you can always contact SecPod or go to our Saner Now portal. Chandra, do you have any additional comments today?
No, that's about it from my side. Thank you everyone for joining this webinar and for your time.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you everyone.